Thank you for coming over today. um, for those who are not aware, we have Barb and Rochelle here from the League of Women Voters of Lehigh County.
Yes.
Talking about voting and our rights. Great end to what is National Disability Voter Registration Week. So a chance that AAPD likes to get out and kind of kick off voting and rev up people, get them excited to vote, get them registered. So we thought we'd end the week with just that. So I will turn it over to you guys, the experts on voting.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. My name is Barbara Connolly, and I do community outreach for the League of Women Voters of Lehigh County.
My name is Rochelle Kaplan. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters Lehigh County, but I'm also the Director of Voter Services for the statewide League of Women Voters.
Yeah, so between the two of us, we don't bring absolute knowledge of everything, but we try to bring what we've learned over the past years about voting and candidates and how our government works. This picture, and I'm not even sure where it's from, but I think it does give you at least the idea that of where the roots of the League of Women Voters come from. There is a huge history, of course, of women not having the ability to vote. And when I think about it, my grandmother was not able to vote until she was 35 years old. My grandmother, because women did not get the right to vote until the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920. And before that, women were just considered, their primary job was homemakers, and some people believe we just didn't have the intellect to be able to make the decisions necessary to vote. That was something men got to do. So the League of Women Voters is actually, comes from the suffrage movement, trying to get women the right to vote. And 6 months after the 19th Amendment, the League of Women Voters became an official organization. And now we are committed to continuing to be committed to, all kinds of voting things. And Rochelle's going to tell you a little bit about, what we're involved in currently. But these are our forebears.
Right, and we don't have to wear those
No,
anymore.
We don't.
Whatever. But we're 103 years old this year, and the League of Women Voters, their mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. And that's our core mission. The way we do that is through education and through advocacy, meaning we go around, like we're doing today, talking to people about the importance of voting, how to register to vote, how to vote, can do their mail-in or in person, how to find information on candidates, what the issues are. We do not take a position on any candidate. We are nonpartisan and nonprofit. Nonpartisan means we may have a position on an issue. For example, we're very supportive of mail-in ballots. That's a good thing, makes voting more accessible. But we don't then say, and vote for so-and-so because they also support mail-in ballots. So we may take positions on issues, but do not have any position on any candidate. I will now turn it over to Barb, and we can talk more about the importance of voting.
Right. And although we started as a women's movement and the League of Women Voters, and that is still our League of Women Voters of Lehigh County is still our name, we do have an invite male membership. That is different. We don't have a huge male membership, but we invite men to join us. They come to our meetings. They can be members for sure. So the next, I think that's just a little bit about us. There it is.
While we're going to this, I forgot to mention, we have a website.
Yes.
That'd be great to be able to show you, but on our website is all of our programs, publications, whether it's the government directory, information about our hot topics, programs, information about candidates, so I will be fired if I didn't mention
Yes.
our website, so
And-
sorry.
And it's a pretty easy website to navigate if you're looking for certain topics, for sure. And there'll be some handouts at the end of the presentation where you'll be able to get the names of those websites and how to access them. So the question is, are you ready to vote in 2023? As we're saying, you know, we consider voting to be of prime importance every year. And in Pennsylvania, we have 2 elections per year. The primary election that was held in May and now the election coming up. So are you ready in 2023 to vote? Today's goals are to learn a little bit about the November 7th general election that's coming up shortly, less than 2 months now. Find out various ways in which you can register to vote, learn about how to vote, and what kind of offices will be on your ballot. Your ballot may be different than mine when you go to your polling place or get a mail-in ballot, because we live in different places. And this is the kind of election where, depending on the kind of township, county you live in, you may find some differences. There will be some similarities or sameness across the state in the ballot, and then some differences depending on where you live. And then we're going to talk a bit about and explore at the end how you can learn more about the candidates. There's different ways to do that, some online and some actually in print. Pennsylvania, as we know, there's 3 different types of elections: primary elections, where parties choose their particular candidates. Those are closed, so you have to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican to vote in the primary in Pennsylvania, at least. So if you're a Republican, you can only vote for Republican primary candidates, the same for a Democrat. We also have special elections, and those are in case, you know, someone leaves office at a different time. Special elections can be planned. I don't believe there's any special elections in Lehigh County, not at present, but there may be some over the state. As you said, primary elections are usually held in May in Pennsylvania. There is some question about next year, right, Rochelle?
Right.
So hang on, you know, because it's a presidential year coming up, there's always this jockeying for position about who gets to be first, because, you know, we're choosing a president. So you'll have to see what happens come 2024, you know, when our primary is. Generally, they've always been in May, not always on the same day, but they're always on Tuesday, early in the month. Usually the first Tuesday, or second Tuesday. So you can go through this one. Oh, well, in the primary election, yeah, choose their candidates, as we said, to run in the general election, and that's the election that is happening on November 7th.
And just to jump in, when we talk about advocacy, this is where one of the things that the league is very much concerned about. The league doesn't think that those primaries are a good thing, because 1.3 million voters who are not registered as Republican or Democrat, could be registered unaffiliated, could be registered independent, can't vote.
Right.
And when somebody can't vote, that's
that's
near and dear to the league's heart. So we are working to advocate to open the primaries, especially starting in 2024, because people should have a way to vote in the primary for this very important election.
Right. Yeah. And one of the beliefs of the league is that if you open the primaries to everyone, that there would probably be candidates that were maybe not quite as extreme at both ends, right? You know, so that's one of the things. And I know both Rochelle and I are poll workers, and every year in the primary, people come and they're surprised that they are not able to vote. They don't realize I'm an independent, and they don't realize that they
And
can't
it's
vote.
heartbreaking to send somebody who wants to vote away.
Yeah. And they're disappointed, sometimes angry,
Yeah.
but disappointed, and it's too late for them to be able to change their registration to a party. So hopefully that will change at some point. Maybe we'll see, right?
Yes, we're
We're
working on
lobbying
it.
for it. Okay. And as you say, in this general election, however, If you're a registered Democrat, Independent, Republican, you can vote for the candidate of your choice, any choice. Doesn't matter what you're registered or who you're voting for. November 7th is the coming election. So we're here to make sure that everybody has the information that they need to be ready to vote on that Tuesday. 2023 is a municipal election year. Does anybody know what that means, or anybody heard? No. And it's, I think municipal is not a word that we bandy or talk about a whole lot in the first place, but municipal elections are, let's say that they're local elections. You know, we have federal elections where we vote for the president, and then we have state elections when we're looking at the governor, but then we have local elections. So if you go to the next slide, when you think about what municipal means, you may live in a borough, you may live in a city, Allentown is a city, you may live in, what's that county? Lehigh County, right? You live in Lehigh County. This is in Lehigh County right now. A township, I live in Upper Macungie Township, which is in Lehigh County. So when you think about municipal, you're thinking about local government that is closer to you, right, Rochelle?
Right.
So municipal, local. Every other year, we have municipal elections. So odd years, it's 2023. This is an odd year. We're not voting for the president. We're not voting for federal candidates, but we are voting for certain municipal elections, municipal kinds of people. Let's see if we can go to the, oh, that's a little bit fast. Hold on. Okay, who will be on your ballot? So we're going to have candidates from the schoolhouse to the courthouse. Schoolhouse. What candidates do you think would be schoolhouse candidates? Any ideas? If you think about school boards, school board elections are taking place across Lehigh County, and school board members make a lot of decisions. And we'll also have courthouse, which are going to be judges, and Rochelle's going to talk about judges in a little bit. So we're going to have candidates all the way from school board members to statewide judges and local judges too. Okay, so what positions are on the ballot? Municipal government, as we said, is local government. So in the county, in Lehigh County, there is a commissioner's race. Commissioners make decisions county-wide about some of the things that are going on in your county. What kind of services will be county services? Let's see, what else, Rochelle? Your husband is a commissioner at some point,
Yes,
right?
he's currently
a commissioner,
Yes.
but won't be on the ballot, so we're okay talking about that.
He will not be on
He
the
will not be on the ballot.
But the county government runs your prison, children and youth,
Yeah.
drug and alcohol, senior and disability programs, juvenile and criminal cases, probation and parole, and election administration. Always running our elections. So you don't really think about how county government doesn't do a good job explaining what they do, but those are the kinds of things that they handle.
And if you think about the commissioners, they actually pass ordinances, right? Which are local laws. You know, so we have federal laws, but we also have, let's think about local laws. So they pass ordinances, which are local laws. They adopt budget, they adopt budgets, how much money is going to go to what in Lehigh County, you know, where are we going to spend the funds? Because you have taxes, Lehigh County taxes that you pay. They support Cedarbrook, which is our local nursing home. And we're lucky in Lehigh County to have a facility for older people like Cedarbrook. They also local courts and correction facilities. So, you know, county commissioners have a lot of decisions to make for the best of the county. We also have what are row offices, district attorney, coroner, clerk of judicial records. Those are county offices. The mayor is not up this year. That's not an office that will be voted on, at least in the city of Allentown. And there are some council positions, I believe, that will be up. In townships, I believe my township does not have anybody up, but it depends on the township that you live in. Borough offices could be mayors or council, and again, school boards. So these are all local local offices. Okay. And Michelle's gonna talk a little bit about some of the other offices that are statewide, that are actually the judicial offices.
So if we want to go to the next slide. Oh,
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah, yeah, but
I
this
mean, the
continues
city-
to list some of the important things like, you know, cities, boroughs and townships, fire departments. Some of them are paid, some are volunteer. But they still have to get funding. Even if they're volunteer, they need things like new fire engines, right? And funds, you know, zoning, big deal locally, right? How many warehouses are there going to be? Where are there going to be developments? Trash and snow removal, really important, right? So
There
those
could
are
be a
all
lot
some
of
of the,
them still.
yeah, there's a lot. You look at that county government and city and township government. There's an awful lot in local government that affects you every day. Oh, and that one?
Or school boards.
Yeah, the judicial, I guess, is a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So school boards, we said, every single school board in Lehigh County, there are candidates running. And those school boards, once again, set budgets, set policy, hire the superintendent, approve resources for the schools as well as buildings, whether we're gonna build a new building or whether or not we're going to rehab a building. They set the school calendar and negotiate the various contracts with the teachers, the maintenance folks, the school bus drivers. So they have a lot of say in how your school district runs. Very important races that are this year.
Yeah.
What Barb and I like to say is the odd year elections, there is no off year election. There are even year elections.
Yeah.
The off year elections are the elections that impact your day-to-day existence more than federal or state. If you don't get your snow removed, you don't, well, you could call your congressperson, you could call your US senator, but they're not in charge.
No.
It's the city, it's the township, it's the township. So this is, it's granular stuff,
Yeah.
stuff that we take for granted, but these are the governments that have the say in those areas.
And I chose this picture to put up there. There's a football field and there's a band, a marching band. And when you think about schools, I think a lot of people associate schools with purely the academics. You go to school, you take tests, you take the courses, you decide, they help you decide where you want to go after high school or element and the courses. But I don't know about all of you, but for a lot of young people, there's a whole other part of school, and that's the social part, learning how to be leadership, how to get along with other people, or learning the skills that you're going to need later in the workforce, right? Cooperating with other people, and things like band, sports, organizations that aren't necessarily academic in the classroom are really important for those lifelong skills. School boards make decisions about whether there'll be art classes, how the library is going to function. Will there be a library? Will there be sports? And what sports will there be? Will they be equal for boys and girls, right? Will there be a band? Because a lot of people do, you know, they look at funding and there's only so much money. School boards make decisions about the money, the funds, and how they are going to be spent. And you have say in who gets elected to school boards according to what their values and positions are about that money. So this picture is kind of saying, you know, there's a lot to think about that's kind of not always on your radar when it comes to school boards.
So the judiciary. And I really like this triangle because it really depicts in my mind exactly how cases not just flow, but where they reside. So the bottom of this triangle are the magisterial courts, and in Lehigh County, that's what they're called, not municipal court, they call them magisterial. They take the largest number of cases. I think in one slide, we have 96% of all legal
Yeah.
proceedings are done at the magisterial level. So if you have on your ballot, the magistrates are split up in districts, 14 different districts in Lehigh County. So depending on where you live, your ballot may be a magisterial candidate. That person is going to handle 96% of the legal proceedings in your area. Incredibly important position. The next level is the Court of Common Pleas. They handle the next level of cases, and currently, countywide, you will not see someone running for Court of Common Pleas. We don't have anybody right now running. However, in 2025, the commissioners just approved having an 11th judge. So there will be someone on your ballot for that level. The next two levels are what is known as the appellate level. So let's say there's a case in the Court of Common Pleas, decisions made, one side doesn't like the decision. It is appealed to the upper level courts, and I can explain the difference between Superior and Commonwealth in a minute. The final decision maker in the judiciary in our state is the Supreme Court, same name as we use for the US Supreme Court. That's where the case stops, and as you can see, it's at the tip of the iceberg. So they get the fewest cases. So next slide. So on the ballots here in Lehigh County, there'll be Justice of the Supreme Court, there'll be two candidates. The Judge of the Superior Court, there will be 4 candidates for 2 positions. And then Judge of the Commonwealth Court, there is 1 position open, there'll be 2 people on your ballot. Then we have, in the state of Pennsylvania, something called retention. So when you win a judicial race at the appellate level, and even at the common pleas level, you have a term of 10 years. And after the end of your 10 years, instead of having to rerun the whole thing, your name is on the ballot just for yes or no. Should we retain the person or not? That's our system in the state of Pennsylvania. And then, as I said, depending on where you live, you may see a magisterial district judge. Where Barb lives, there is a magisterial district judge race. Where I live, Weisenberg Township, there isn't any, so I won't see. Not every judge is up. Once again, sometimes there's a retirement resignation that causes magisterial district judges to be open. I believe they have a term of 6 years, not 10, but theirs is not a retention. Okay, and go to the next slide. So as I said, this is the kind of thing that a magisterial judge handles. They also handle, when we talk about civil disputes, any civil dispute under $12,000. So let's say you have your kitchen done and you don't like what the contractor did. So you don't want to pay the last installment. The contractor then, and the last installment is $5,000. Can take you to magisterial court over that contract dispute. You know, so-and-so, Michelle should have paid me the last $5,000. I say, no, I shouldn't. The cabinet services are on a tilt. If you've ever watched the show Judge Judy, not that she was a magisterial judge, but that's the kind of proceeding, very informal. And then the judge makes the decision. They also do protection from abuse orders, preliminary hearing, criminal cases, and also sets bails. That's why there's 96% of all legal proceedings.
Yeah, and I mentioned too, there's in Lehigh County, there's 14 of these magistrates. I think that's pretty much what they call them. They're magistrates, and I know the office for the magistrate closest to me is like 5 minutes away. And if you can actually look up who your magistrate is online, or local police will tell you too. You can tell them, who should I go to for this? Police will also and tell you where to come. They're local. They're very, very, very local. Very connected.
They understand the neighborhood that they serve in.
Yeah.
Which is really wonderful. The next slide. So Court of Common Pleas is what you typically think of. You know, it's a regular trial court in the county government center. They handle civil, criminal matters, family matters, you know, custody dispute, divorce, orphans court, property, and wills. And then, as I said, at the state appellate level, it's all the appeals from the trial court. And in Commonwealth Court, that's the one at the bottom, they take appeals that have to do with governmental agencies. You're not satisfied. You went into the workers' compensation because you got injured on the job. You didn't like what the workers' compensation hearing board decided. Your appeal would go to the Commonwealth Court. The Superior Court, though, takes any civil or criminal matter that happens in the Court of Common Pleas, goes to the Superior Court. And then the Supreme Court takes it all. And when the Supreme Court makes a decision on a case, they set precedent for the entire state. The rest of the judges have to follow the Supreme Court precedent. So very important. And just to bring it into that just happened 2 years ago, and it has to do with elections. So a lot of people 2 years ago forgot to put the date on the envelope on their mail-in ballot. They filled out the mail-in ballot perfectly, and they signed it, they forgot to put the date. There was litigation as to whether those votes should be thrown out. The Supreme Court of our state made a decision that every single county in the state had to follow regarding that. And there was a lot of jumping through hoops to make sure that people, because our state Supreme Court said they got to have a date on it. So there was a lot of counties that tried to get in touch with voters, come on in, sign it, but that's how important that Supreme Court is in this state. Okay, next slide.
So why should you vote? You know, we've talked a little bit about, you know, what's happening in these municipal elections and the statewide judges. So why vote when you think about this? Does anybody have any reasons at this point why you think you should vote, having listened to some of this? Well, if you go to the next slide, the question then becomes, what do you care about? You know, why should I vote? What do I care about? And I think that's an especially, in some ways, a really local question. When you look about your house, your neighborhood, your city, your town, what should I care about in with my kids, with my education, with myself and my life? So some things that kind of pop up might be education. You know, you obviously work here a lot with young people that come from a variety of school districts, right? And those school districts support them in their program here. You want that to continue? Care about education. You care about snow removal. I know in the city of Allentown, you often see all kinds of things. I live in there. It's been four days since the snow, and I can't get my car out. Firefighting, yeah, that's something that's real important. Police, I know that that's also something that can be controversial in a lot of cities, small or large. What are the procedures. What kind of relationship do local police have with their community? Are they out actually talking to people? What kind of relationships do they have? Parking, oh my goodness. In a city especially, right? Parking procedures, right? I have so many parking, right, bills from that. People are parking illegally, people are double parking and they're not taking care of it. So those are issue parts. Allentown, oh my gosh, I can't speak for Northampton County, but Lehigh County and Allentown has an amazing park system that is supported through taxpayers. Do you want that to continue? Do you want it improved? Taxes, oh my goodness. Are my taxes going to go up? What are they going to support? What are they going to be used for? So there's a lot of reasons locally and statewide, with the judges to care about what's happening. And I think all of you may have very different reasons for voting and very different reasons, things that you care about, but they're all important.
And this is your opportunity to vote for
Yeah.
people that impact that. I can't stress that. No,
Yeah.
I know we're all focused on 2024. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the year that I'm going to vote for people that are going to take care of the local streets
Yeah.
that I live on, the bridges,
Yeah.
the sewers.
Yeah, bridges, failing bridges, yeah.
So
Yeah, the statistics are something like in primaries, something like 20%, right?
yes,
Depending on where you live, but in some cities, less than 20% of voter turnout. And for the kind of elections that are happening this November, a small, maybe 40% of registered voters vote. Now, come to a presidential year, it's a lot bigger, but people, I think, look at that as being important for elections. Well, it's important, but it's what's happening locally in your neighborhood and in your city that affects your day-to-day life a lot more than who is the president and the vice president of the United States.
very true.
So why do they vote? Why vote? Quite simply because people elected for these positions have the biggest impact on your day-to-day life, especially when we're talking about these municipal local elections. So there are 3 steps to making your voice heard. The first is registered. If you're not registered, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can register. The second thing is, even if you're registered, that doesn't mean you vote. There's a lot of people who are registered voters who do not vote. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, yeah, I'm registered. I registered years ago, but I stopped voting because what difference does it make? So there is a certain, attitude that people can have about voting, even if they're registered. But once they understand the impact of their vote and how important it is, I think they can change their mind and actually start to make a plan to use that power that they have.
Getting back to the importance of this municipal election, and I know we're beating this, but it's so important. So these elections, because the turnout is small, one vote
That's
One
true. And it
can
does.
determine who's on the school board, can determine who's the commissioner, who's on city council. One vote.
One vote.
So everybody in this room, our vote has a huge impact this year in particular.
So important to make a plan and vote. So can I register to vote? If you're a United States citizen, if you're 18 years old on or before election day, so you can register when you're 17, as long as by the day of election day, you're 18 that day. So if you're 18 November 7th, you don't have to wait till your birthday to register. You can vote before that because you'll be old enough. And you have to be a resident of the state and the district in which you will be voting for at least 30 days. So how you can register, and there'll be handouts about that, and these are all live, but you can register online at votepa.org.gov, and we actually have some postcards that will be available that will help people to be able to go online and find their easily register using a computer. If you go on votepa.gov, you can also download the form and print it and mail it to your local county board of elections, or you can go down to the Board of Elections in Lehigh County. It's in Allentown down on 7th Street. People are great down there. You can go down there and get a paper ballot and fill it out and hand it right to them. Or you can get a paper ballot and mail it to them. So there's multiple ways that you can register to vote. You can do it virtually on the computer, online. You can do it by mailing it, download the form, or you can go down to the Board of Elections office and do it all in person or return it in person, which I personally like to do. You can, at votepa.gov, you can not only register to vote there, you can also request a mail-in ballot. If you know for some reason that you're not going to be here locally, you have every right in the world to request a mail-in ballot. Also, there's still people who do not feel comfortable going into large groups or going to a polling place. That's okay. You can request a mail-in ballot. And also at this particular website, there's lots of information at this website. You can find your polling place. You can actually check to make sure you're registered to vote. Find out, as I said, your polling place, which is where you're going to vote. So there's a wealth of information on this website, and it's relatively easy to get through.
And they're making it better. This is a state elections website, and it is in Spanish.
Yeah,
It's
up
also
on the corner, you can just click it.
It's also going to be apparently in some counties, Philadelphia County and Pittsburgh County, there's a larger population of Chinese speaking. So they're putting all this information in that language too. So it's highly accessible.
Yeah, and I think the next one. Okay, and if you go, could you go back one, Catherine? Could you go up to that? I'm not the vote. Oh. Okay, no, to the one. Keep going. Keep going. I didn't know if that was live or not, that the one with votepa.gov. I don't know if you can.
Let's see. Shoot.
Maybe it doesn't want to do it. Sometimes they can be a little finicky. That's okay, but it is an easy website to get to.
It popped up otherwise.
Okay.
Oh, there it
Oh,
is.
there it
Yeah,
is.
only popped up
So
otherwise.
you can just, if you can just scroll down a little bit, you can see how easy it is. It's big, it's, get right at the top, voting in Pennsylvania, register to vote, about elections, all kinds of resources. There's all your languages. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
They've done a really excellent job.
Yeah. And this is the website at which you would be able to download a paper ballot if you want to and print it. Okay, register to vote, register online, requirements, update your registration if you're an independent, but you say, you know what, I want to be able to vote the primary in Pennsylvania, not knowing what will happen. You can go on there and change your registration to a particular party.
I've done that before. It's so easy.
It's so easy. So, they cannot make it any easier. And Pennsylvania Department of State really wants your involvement. They want you to vote. So I just want people to be able to see that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to get out of it, right? Oh, great.
Okay.
It worked. Okay.
Okay.
So the next one, I think it gives you these are options that you have to vote. You can vote in person at your precinct, your polling place on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Has anyone here ever voted in person with the new? Well, I guess it's not
Scanning
quite
machines.
new systems. It's been, wow, okay. What did you think?
I use the accessible.
Okay.
I don't like it as much. I don't like it as much. Well, because before the voting machines, when you voted accessibly, it just, you went over the ballot, and when you were done, you just submitted it, and that was it. Now the paper comes out, and for me, the people at the register, that are manning the site, they're not allowed to touch my paper.
Exactly.
Right. Out of the thing, now I have to find another machine in the room that I have no clue where it's at. And then I have to wait for somebody to come over to get me to it. And you have to put it in a certain way, which they have an upper corner cut out. But they don't tell you until you get there and you're ready to put it in. Oh, no, that has to go in the other corner. And it's just frustrating.
Much, yeah, that must be, and maybe that ABA machine
The other,
has to be moved closer to the scanning.
well, we
That's one thing.
have two different areas that come to the same polling site. So
Two precincts.
where they
Yeah.
put the things in, it's one collection place for.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's crazy.
And it's just frustrating as all get out. Like I said before, you walked up, it was a little bit different for them to put the machine together and everything, but, yeah, everything, you voted, you listened to it, you have a handheld device that I can just press the buttons as I listen to it. And when you're done, you're done. Now it's just so different and I really,
But
That's good.
But that is really good
Yeah.
feedback for the Board of Elections to know the difficulty in being able to access a machine, and you've got two different machines, you said that, and you can only put in one of those two.
well, the machines are, so
The
it's the
scanners.
same machine, it isn't accessible, but the one that scans it, like,
Right,
when you press the button, then you have to take it out of that machine, put it into the one that collects all the
scans it.
paper.
Right,
And that's the one where, if it was right next to it or something like that, you
Yeah.
have to walk, and it's not far away, I'm not
but,
complaining about that, it's just that I can't see it all, and
right,
just,
Right.
and the very first time the machine didn't work. And they just handed a paper to the person that drove me there and said, here, fill it out.
oh my goodness,
So annoyed.
yeah, that's a frustration.
yeah.
And privacy, we're talking about the
Right.
privacy
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
voting, and you're right.
There-
Rochelle and I
there
are both poll-workers, we know we're not allowed to touch your ballot, look at your ballot.
I had one person that was it was an older gentleman, it was a father and son, the son was probably about my age, and the father was, God knows, 80 something. But he shuffled along, and when I did it, I was the first person in that building to do it, and he came up to me and said, can I watch you? He was just so impressed with how it worked.
Yeah.
He didn't care what I was doing, he just wanted to see how it
It
worked.
worked. Okay,
He's no longer there, but I just thought it was sweet. old man.
yeah. Right, and individuals who need assistance can bring someone, but maybe you don't, maybe why should you have to, right? Why should you have to have somebody there to guide you, right, to the scanning machine, or to be there to fill it out if the freaking machine doesn't work, I mean, so that's excellent feedback.
But it was frustrating. I've had 2 times where the person had to fill it out. The one time it was my driver, which I didn't know her all that well in a different organization that I'm in. And the second time was a man that I know who had very strong, this is who you should vote for. And I told him who I wanted. I don't know if he really voted for who I wanted,
Yeah, how do you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
because he had different opinions than I did.
yeah,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I know when I went to vote in person with the new system, it was not, because we used to vote in the basement, so it was not lit very well. So you're
Oh,
trying to stand there with the dividers on the table, casting a shadow on your ballots. I'm like, I'm picking it up, twisting
Trying
it
to
left
look.
and right, trying to, like,
Yeah.
did I mark the right bubble? Thinking the pandemic was probably the best thing because it forced them to move out of that little tiny basement room to a room that's about this size, and it's like, oh my goodness, we have tables, we can sit, I don't have to
Yeah.
stand and try to, it's not set up perfect, they're still working on it, because we still have some cross traffic with 2 precincts and the scanning machine where they have it, so it's like, you're trying to walk through the traffic that's coming in and like, look at this
Wow.
now, but.
And one of the other things that was confusing for anybody about voting in person, and I'm sure will be in this coming election too, especially with school boards, is that depending on the office you're voting for, the instruction may say, there may be 3 candidates or 4 candidates, but it will say, vote for 1, or vote for no more than 2. And I found in the last election that it will reject your ballot. If it says vote for no more than 2 and you vote for 3, it takes it back out when you try to put it in, and then people are like, oh, and I have to destroy that ballot and get a new ballot. So following the directions on the paper ballot are important,
Yes.
and sometimes the poll workers will kind of warn you about, well, when you will see that there are specific things, but it's very easy to forget and just do that. So it does help to decide beforehand who you vote for. And we're gonna talk about how you can think about that. But we do have, as you said, paper ballots, fill in, put them into a scanner. Shouldn't matter which way, but sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't like that direction. But the idea of the new machines is that there is a paper trail. So that's the paper that you put in that gets scanned, dropped down into a bag, and is secretively locked up. But there's a way to check those. And when we use the machines, the touch screen machines, there was no paper trail. So in Pennsylvania, I guess, 3-4 years ago, the decision was made that there have to be paper trails.
Right, 2019 is when we got the paper ballots and the scanning. That was the first election that we had to do it.
So as long as you're there by, you go. Okay, so votes PA, I think this is just, yeah, you can click on that. It's just about making a plan. Yep, it just kind of tells you, you know, the first time you vote, you need to have an ID. After the first time, you don't need to have an ID with you, but the first time you vote in person at the polls, you need to have a driver's license, a voter registration card, or other ID. One of those other IDs is even, I believe, bringing your electricity bill, right?
Yeah,
With your name and your address on it.
and just to put an asterisk on the first time voter, it's not the first time you've ever voted
Right.
in your life. If you move from Lehigh County, North Hampton, and you're voting there, even though you've been voting for 10 years, you have to show an ID
Right.
that you, who you are.
Yeah.
So it's the first time you've ever voted and the first time you're voting in a new location.
And when you register, when you go to the polls and you give them your name and you sign in, it actually pops up. So you wonder, how did they know that I just moved here? Well, it pops up with a little symbol that says ID needed.
And the
So
poll worker.
it's not magical.
Yeah, the poll worker who's checking you in will see that little flag and say, I'd like to see your ID. If you don't have an ID, you will still be given a provisional ballot. Nobody, other than during a primary and you're not registered, Republican or Democrat, nobody is denied the right to vote.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the next one, oh yeah, where is your polling place? And what do I do if I'm not on town in election day? That's when you can use a mail-in ballot, obviously, because you're not gonna be there, so good reason, still want to vote. Where do people in my household go to vote? You can go to League of Women Voters, vote411.org. And this slideshow will be available and people could click on where it says here, and it will actually tells you where you can put in the information. We don't need to do that because I mean, for time wise, but you can find a polling place for your neighborhood. You can always call the Board of Elections office too. And say, this is where I live, where is my polling place? They generally don't change, but sometimes they do.
Yeah.
So your polling place last year may not necessarily be your polling place this year.
And the fact, so I want to be clear, the fact that the county may change where you go to vote, you're at the same address,
right,
you don't have to show ID.
right,
It's if you change your address, you're now voting somewhere based upon your new address.
right. You're in a different precinct, as they call it. Okay. Mail-in voting, you have to be a registered voter, obviously. That same website, votepa.gov, or your local elections office is where you can apply for mail-in ballot. The newer voter registration forms, not the older ones, but the newer ones actually have a place where you can check off. It asks you the question, do you want a mail-in ballot? And you can check that yes. And then you'll be on the list, and then a number of weeks prior to the election, you will receive your mail-in ballot, all of the different parts of that mail-in ballot in your mail. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, it says no excuse or absentee ballot, just same thing. If you're out of your voting district on election day, or you are ill, maybe you've been ill and you know you won't be able to get that, you have an injury. You know, my daughter broke her ankle a while ago. I don't know how she would have been able to get there, or if you have a disability, vote by mail is always an option. So this is a little bit of a step-by-step how to vote by mail. The up in the top, starts in the top. The first thing is to research all your candidates, so you kind of know who you're voting for, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Read all instructions on the ballot, when you get that ballot in a pretty good size, normal, bigger than normal envelope. It has numerous parts. So one of the parts will be the ballot itself, which is the bluish, the second section going down. Fill in your choices front and back. That actually applies to voting in person too, because voting in person ballots are often, and probably, I'm sure will be longer than
Oh.
just the front page this coming election.
Oh, yeah.
So don't miss the back. Third section, put your ballot in a white secrecy envelope. Seal it, no writing on it. If you don't use the secrecy envelope, ballot will not be counting. So that is so that when the people at the Board of Elections office open your ballot, open your mail-in ballot, they don't see who you voted for. It's because that is sealed, okay? Doesn't have your name on it, no way to identify you in that envelope, okay? And then the next one, put the white secrecy envelope in the pre-addressed official election envelope and then seal it. So if people missed anything when they do mail-in, it's that there's two things they miss. One is not using the white secrecy ballot.
Well, let me one. Well, and what happened last time in Lehigh County, they made that white into yellow. People were throwing away the white,
didn't
thinking,
know
"Well,
that.
I don't need that." So now, last election, they had a yellow one. Don't know whether they're gonna do it again, just to make it.
Tricky. I never knew the yellow one. I don't vote by mail, so I never saw the yellow one.
For visual people, to make it clear, yes, you can't throw this away, you need to put your ballot.
And it does say secrecy on it.
It
It does, so it is marked with that. Whether it's yellow or white. So the next thing is it says, sign and date the voter's declaration on the envelope. And it says they are not outside, if the signature and date are not on the outside envelope, they will not be counted. So it's on the back side of the envelope. So in the coming election, it's important to do that, right?
Right, our state Supreme Court has
Said.
said, we're gonna throw out your ballot. Or, not we
Yep.
will, but the county election board can throw out the ballot, which again is devastating to me, just because somebody missed
Yeah.
a date.
So it looks like a lot, but the basics are, complete the ballot, put it in the secrecy envelope, the inside one, put it in the outer envelope, and sign and date the outer envelope. And make sure you return it.
And that's kind of,
That seems like, oh, that should be easy, but you know what? People, I'm sure 2 days after the election, go, oh, it's sitting in my kitchen and it's too late to return it, seriously. And that just kind of shows it.
and that little graph is kind of a depiction of what
Yeah.
you will receive in the mail.
Yep. And it does say here, and this is also something that can be downloaded and will be copies at the office here. If you have a disability that prevents you from applying in person for your mail ballot or delivering your mail ballot to either a drop box or to the County Board of Elections, you can designate someone else to return it for you. That was also something that was real controversial. You're supposed to return your ballot and nobody else can return. But there are situations where you can't get there. You can't get to pick up the ballot. You can't get there physically to return the ballot. So you can actually use a form. There is a form to designate. I could designate Rochelle. I broke my leg. I can't get down there, but I can give my ballot to Rochelle. She's going to take it down to Allentown. But there's a form that I give to her. Just in case. Just in case we want to not be questioned that she has taken my ballot
Right,
and done it herself and is delivering it, but she voted for me. No,
yeah,
she didn't. So get ready to vote in 2023. Just Pennsylvania wants to do that. Some rights you have as a voter. If the polls close while you're still in line, stay in line. Nobody can come out and say, oh, sorry, we closed. If you're there, you're there. If you made a mistake on your ballot, ask for a new one. That's why poll workers are there to help you do that. It's not uncommon. to make mistakes. And sometimes, you know, it can be the new paper ballots can be finicky. So if you make straight lines, then they say, oh, we don't want you. If your machines are down at your polling place, well, we use polling. That shouldn't even be there, you know? And if a poll worker is not sure of your eligibility, you say you registered, but you're not showing up on the polls, you can ask for a provisional ballot. And Vote 411 is a League of Women Voters initiative. It's an online program that gives information about voting, but also has detailed candidate information. It tells you voting. So we're just gonna real quick, if you go to the next one, Vote 411 is where you can get information. So I think it's actually, and the Lehigh County Voters Guide comes out usually mid-October. We're waiting for information about that. So hopefully come mid-October, there's a voters guide that we published, which has the same information as Vote 411. So yeah, if you click on that, I think the next one, actually, if you go to the next slide,
Okay.
go to the next slide, because it has a little more about how you can get candidate information. So what am I voting on? Find out what's on your ballot. Okay. So I think actually that, yes, try and put my street address in and see if it works. I'm not sure. Actually, I think it might be the next slide. Oh, go back. I guess it is that slide. Go ahead.
Okay.
So Catherine's gonna put my street address in if it works.
Okay, you have to do it over here.
I'm not sure. Oh, is it working?
It's working on my end, so I'll have to,
Oh, that's interesting.
because that is just the picture, it's not
Okay.
the website. The website launched on my screen here.
Okay, so Catherine's putting my address in to show you how you can get personalized information about what your ballot is going to be. Okay, so where it says you go on this, there's my address. Whoops, click on submit. She put my address in. Hard to see, but it is there. And it will give you information. It's just taking a minute. Upcoming elections.
You guys all know the internet here is
Yes.
building slow.
At this point, the information on Vote 411 will be about the judge race, the judicial races. The local races are not up there yet, correct?
No, Julie's still, so we
Still
have,
working on it?
each county, league puts in their own local.
There they are.
candidates.
They're going
So in
down.
Lehigh
You
County,
scroll down a
our
little bit.
administrator is in the process of gathering that information, and she will be putting it up, but we can show you, because the state has already put
Right.
up the statewide races.
So these are the statewide races. So this came out under my address. This will be the same on your ballots, okay? So you can see that it says what the office is. When you click over to view the race, you can pick anyone. Okay,
Well,
so
that's retention.
that's a retention, so there's only gonna be one person on that
Yeah.
one, unfortunately.
Why don't you go back and pick like Supreme, Superior, but just to be clear, in a few weeks, Barb's ballots and your ballots are gonna be a lot longer.
Yeah,
Because it's going to have the candidates, Lehigh County
right.
Commissioner, DA, coroner, and then whatever school district you're in, whatever city, whatever township.
So what happens is you will actually see as you scroll down, information about the office, and that will be the same for local offices. And then if you keep scrolling down a little bit, you'll see pictures of the candidates. There they are. A Democrat and a Republican running. And then if you click on view answers, the League of Women Voters poses questions to the candidates, and they have the opportunity to answer those questions. Yep. It should show up, scroll down.
There it is.
And there he is. It tells a little bit about him, his education, and keep going down, and his qualifications, and a little bit down.
And then there are these.
There he is. There's the
those.
Yep.
And interesting thing about this website is Catherine could have picked both candidates And then you would be able to compare side by side.
Yeah.
Their answers to questions.
Yeah, there'll be their pick, and you can actually choose one, but yeah, you'll see it side by side. Obviously, it'll be a split screen. But when it comes to the local races, the information will be there also. Unfortunately, sometimes candidates do not answer questions.
Yes,
They'll respond to our
request.
request to answer questions, and then it will just be, it'll still have the information about them potentially and who's running, but it'll just say no response. We can't force people. This is the same information that will be in the voter's guide come October, we hope. Okay, because it's also a legal Women Voters project, the voter's guide. of
That the
Lehigh
morning
County.
call publishes.
Right,
So if the morning call decides not to publish, we will not see a voter's guide, but we will have vote for on one.
okay, so that's kind of how Vote 411 works. You can fiddle around with it when you have an opportunity. It's pretty easy. It's the Find My Ballot. So important dates, last day to register, October 23rd, so you just have time. Mail-in ballot a week later if you're interested in getting mail-in ballot, which is only, but I wouldn't wait. Okay,
October 31st is the absolute last day to apply for mail-in ballot. But think about it. You have to, if you want to mail it, you've got to get it back to the county 7 days later. Now, we all know the postal service has its ups and downs. So we really strenuously advise folks, if you really know you want to vote by mail, apply now. ASAP.
Yep. One last thing I forgot to mention about a mail-in ballot. If you get it and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go in person anyway. I have my mail-in ballot. If you go to your polling place, you can take your entire mail-in ballot with you. And they'll just take it and give you a regular ballot. It's just kind of an exchange thing. If you don't have your mail-in ballot and you say, I didn't send it in, but it's at home and you can't turn it in, they'll give you a provisional ballot to vote. So there are some options if you haven't returned your completed ballot and you want to vote in person. Either take it with you, hand it in, they'll give you a paper ballot, or they'll have you vote provisionally. So you can do that.
And the reason why we refer to it as provisional ballot is because it's just as valid as a regular one. But it causes the election board to make sure that I didn't vote twice. As long as they find out, no, Kaplan only has this one, then it becomes the official ballot. But until then, it is considered provisional.
And mail-in ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on election day. If it's close and you haven't mailed it, you have the option of taking it down to 7th Street, and there will be a box at the county government office, and probably there'll be some other drop boxes where you could take your mail-in ballot. But maybe 2 weeks before the election, we'll find out where those drop boxes, you've heard about drop boxes, might be.
But on election day, drop boxes, if they are still functioning, they're only functioning until 4:30 by the afternoon. On election day, only drop box that is open to complete is the one downtown at the government center.
And it was interesting during COVID, they actually had lines of people right downtown on that day.
Yes.
Last minute returning their mail-in ballot. So
Yes.
it's true. So I think the last one, these are some of our postcards. We want to make voting is your superpower and make voting a multi-generational event. One of the things we say is parents, grandparents, parents, go to vote, take your kids along. And if you're not old enough to vote, we have lots of people who come to vote in my precinct and they bring their little kids just so they can kind of show them the importance of it. But make it a multi-generational event, because the earlier you start voting, when you're 18, if you start, more likely you continue to have it as a habit. So your vote does matter. Any questions?
Yeah, sometimes we get phone calls here for transportation to a voting site. Is there anything?
I couldn't quite hear.
That we have, sometimes we get calls here for transportation
We need it.
to go, the people that need a ride to a site. I don't know if there is anything. We one time looked around, like, I don't know if it was the day of or the day before, but we did find something for this lady, but we have been getting periodic calls about that.
Yeah, and I don't know that the county runs anything even through their senior and disability services office. So there's nothing centralized. I think there are just certain organizations that help out, some churches,
Sometimes the
this,
political parties
sometimes
themselves,
the political
the
parties.
Democrats or the
I think
Republicans.
that's what we did that
But-
year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, the league doesn't have the bandwidth. Someday when we have 100 members, 150 members, that would be a wonderful program for the league to do, but right now, a little bit small, but I think that's another excellent idea.
Yeah, there is an organization, I've left these cards with Catherine, called Vote Riders, which they do say that they offer, the ability to help people fund, say voter IDs or photo IDs, because, you know, it's not inexpensive to get a photo ID from the state of Pennsylvania. If you need a copy of your social security card, that they help people do that. And they also do say that they help get rides for people locally. I don't know how that works, but it's certainly something to look into and to call them even beforehand and find out that you get calls. So that's called Vote Riders, and Catherine has this, is gonna have this information. But their website does say that they will help people get to the polls.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. Now, as I say, locally, I'm not sure how many volunteers they have to do that, but they do say that they do that.
We're the tribe.
Yeah, and maybe reaching out to them as a organization before voting day. Okay. Okay, thank you for being here, and
Go vote.
go vote and encourage your friends and
Take
family.
a breath.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you guys. It was